Hi, I'm Lisa from StampCat. I'm a pandemic stamp collector who got hooked on the hobby in 2021 when I rediscovered my dad's stamp albums during his home office renovation. From there, I became captivated by extreme philately, a movement that I'm pretty sure was invented by exploring stamps Graham Beck. It's where you use stamps to learn more about the world by visiting what they show in real life. This summer I traveled to Turkey, and I'll share with you some of my adventures. You'll see that not everything worked out perfectly, but as the saying goes, our lessons come from the journey, not the destination. Before we left for Turkey, I asked my dad if he had any stamps featuring images from Istanbul that I could take with me. But while I'm here, I want to check out some modern stamp issues, and what better place to look than Istanbul's Grand Post Office. The first striking thing about the Grand Post Office is of course the beautiful architecture. It was built between 1905 and 1909 in the classical Ottoman architectural style. Characteristics of this style include two-color stone, decorative ceramic tiles with Islamic calligraphy script, and an arcaded portico, which are these arches over the front porch area here. There's also supposed to be a postal museum, but unfortunately it was closed and locked. I did peek inside the window, but I didn't see anything inside. Hi guys, so now we're at the Grand Post Office in Istanbul, and we're gonna have a look inside. So the post office is on the back street. And it also turns out we can't enter the building here, and the actual post office is on the street behind this building. So we started walking to the other side. We encountered an interesting stamp store and made a mental note to come back here. So here is I don't know, but they have all these stamp things. I think we'll look in there. Stamps hanging on a carousel. It's really cool. So I went in there and typed on Google Translate asking if they sell postage stamps. He said go back to that random store that we saw, and then that's how you get the stamps. So we'll go back there. That's on the same side as the Postal Museum. So to summarize while we walk back, when I went inside the new post office, there was a huge lineup and it was super crowded. You actually have to take a number from a machine and get in line for a queue. I went up to an employee who was directing people and asked if I could buy stamps in here, and he said go to this other store, Philateli Pul Galerisi, which is that same store that we saw back on the street by the Grand Post Office. In the Philatelic store, and I got some stamps. You can't really pick and choose individual ones from previous years. You have to buy the whole pack. So I got quite a few, and then some complimentary postcards too. And then I'll show you guys later what I got. So happy. So I was shy to record more inside the store because it's all quiet in there and people are inside, but basically they had stamps on display in these glass cases, and I wanted to buy some individually, but the lady told me I can't buy them separately, I have to buy the entire page. The pages on display seem to be organized by theme. She said this page was historical places, which sounded interesting. And also, I randomly picked this other set, which I now realize is all of the recent joint issues between Turkey and other countries. Actually, I chose this one because I really wanted these two souvenir sheets. I knew we were planning to see the Blue Mosque, and this would be epic for some extreme philately. The joint issues package also came with this big sheet from Indonesia, which has some cats. That's pretty cool. And also I picked up some definitives to mail my postcards with. She said I need all 4 of these stamps to mail one postcard. Finally, the attendant said we could take a few free postcards that they had in there. I'm not sure if they were free because I already bought something or if they're always free, but since I love collecting postcards so much, these are the few that I took. Quickly, I just want to talk about the differences between Canada Post and Turkish Post that I noticed. First is that the PTT is really busy. They do a ton of things other than just postal service. People can pay their utility bills, do banking services like money orders, collect pension payments, register cell phones, and of course ship parcels. The queue was so long, it was basically as long as our Service Ontario centers, which is our version of the DMV where you go to get your driver's license renewed. At Canada Post, they do only mail and shipping, so the queue is never nearly as long as what I saw in Istanbul. Second is that all of the post office had these like literal ATM machines in front, but not necessarily post boxes. Here's a clip from me a few days later when I was struggling to find a way to mail my postcards.
Hi guys, so I went to the post office to mail my postcards, but they're closed, and then I didn't know, it looks like they locked the box. Like I was planning to just drop it in the box, but it is not here. So yeah, I guess you can only mail stuff when it's open. We'll try again another day.
Also, I was trying to Google on this random webpage nearby post boxes, and I don't know if this website's accurate resource or not, but there aren't that many. There's like 3 in this entire area. And as you can see, it's not really that practical if you're only getting around by walking on foot. But in Canada, you can usually spot post boxes just hanging out pretty much everywhere in public spaces, and definitely in front of every post office. The other thing that was weird for me was that I had to buy all the stamps as a huge package instead of individually, and I don't know if they even sell commemorative stamps at the main post offices or if you can only get them in this collector store. I have mixed feelings about this. There were definitely more stamps I wanted in here, but I didn't buy because I couldn't get them individually. On the other hand, this did force me to buy more stamps that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, but I feel like this would not be encouraging or inspiring to young or new collectors who are interested in the hobby because it's a lot harder to buy this huge packet of stamps rather than like just one single sheet that you really like. In Canada, our post offices do sell both commemorative and definitives, although what selection they have available kind of depends. And you can buy single souvenir sheets by themselves. You don't have to buy like the whole year's worth of commemoratives. But if it does come inside a booklet, you do have to buy the entire booklet and you can't just buy one stamp out of it. Okay, so let's get back to Turkey. Now that I've got my stamps, it's time for some lunch and some extreme philately, or better yet, both at once. So I forgot my tongs in the hotel that day. Sorry, Dad, that we touched your stamp. This stamp was issued in 1914 as part of the Views of Constantinople series. Shown is the Column of Constantine. It's one of the oldest monuments in Istanbul, and in fact was erected in the year 330 AD to inaugurate this city of Constantinople as the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Time for a brief history. The place that's now Istanbul has been part of many civilizations and empires over time. Its strategic location along the Bosphorus Strait links the Mediterranean Sea with the Black Sea, and it's literally the border between Europe and Asia. It was central not only to sea trade routes, but land routes as well, between Europe, Asia, and Africa. While people have settled here from as early as 6700 BC, my timeline will begin with the occupation by the Roman Empire. In 330 AD, the Roman Empire split into 2 halves, the East and the West. Emperor Constantine the Great led the East portion and designated this city, then called Byzantium, as its new capital, Constantinople. About 100 years later, the Western Roman Empire collapsed, but the Eastern half carried on for many more years as the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines built many structures in traditional Roman styles, some of which can still be seen today, like the Hagia Sophia, which used to be a Christian Eastern Orthodox church, the Aqueduct of Valens, and the Basilica Cistern. In 1453, the Byzantine Empire fell to the Ottoman Empire, an Islamic superpower ruled by a sultan. This empire lasted until 1923, when the Republic of Turkey was formed after the War of Independence. The name of the city was officially changed to Istanbul in 1930, which morphed from a Greek nickname of the city, Istanbulin, which means into the city. Let's get back to looking at our column. As I mentioned before, the column was erected in 330 AD by the Emperor Constantine the Great to inaugurate this city as the new capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. The column stood in the center of a huge forum, or public square, where people would gather for processions and celebrations. It's carved from blocks of porphyry, a purple, semi-precious stone that's found only in South Egypt. Legend says there are sacred Christian relics buried under the column, like a piece of the cross that Jesus was crucified on, and the handle from the axe Noah used to build the ark. But of course, this is all unproven. The top of the column had a statue of Constantine dressed as Apollo the sun god, which is interesting because Constantine is famous for declaring Christianity to be the main religion of the Roman Empire, but it's clear he did this in a sort of transitional way, displaying both elements of the old Roman gods and Christianity together. It's also known that there were statues of the old gods, like Athena for example, on display around the forum. The statue of Constantine was knocked down by a storm in the 12th century and then replaced by a cross, which was then removed in 1453 when the Ottomans took over. The iron rings were added in the late 1600s by Sultan Mustafa II to fortify the structure, which is the basis for its Turkish name, Çemberletas, which means hooped stone. As for this stamp, I told you it was issued in 1914, which, according to our timeline, means it was issued by the Ottoman Empire. We can also observe signs of this by looking at the symbols on the border of the stamp. This symbol is a tugra, which is a special seal or signature of the reigning sultan, and the top right corner shows the crescent and star, which was the symbol of the Ottoman Empire. Lastly, we can see that this stamp has a red overprint. The value has been changed to 5 paras. This is another interesting glimpse into Turkey's history. These stamps were produced in 1914 and were actually engraved and produced by a company in Britain. 1914 was also the year of onset of World War I, and Britain and the Ottoman Empire found themselves on opposite sides of the war. The Ottomans had sided with the Germans. The Ottomans didn't really have access to getting more stamps printed at this time, and started overprinting what they did have, so a lot of stamps in this series will have overprints. Mine is an overprint from 1920, and it served as a newspaper stamp, a stamp for companies to show they had paid for the newspaper delivery. Okay, that's quite enough for one day. We certainly have a lot more to see in Istanbul, so stay tuned for more episodes to come.